Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Fireside Chats. A much quicker turnaround here on this episode as well, and I am joined with recent ECL Champion, motm. It's good to have you on here today, motm.
Thank you for having me, man. I'm happy to be here. Happy to be on the Fireside Chats.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I was really excited to have you. I was looking for people to interview, and I actually asked you right before ECL uh, playoffs, maybe even. So I was glad I got you because it was a perfect time. You just recently fresh off the back of winning that. We'll get into that a little bit later, but yeah, first off, how you doing today, man?
I'm great, man. I woke up, started the stream, got my early grind in, and then I got ready for this.
Yeah,
That's
I
my
mean,
day.
you might be the only player that has ever sent me a reply that said I can do any time before 1 p.m. So I was like stunned by that. I was like, no way, because
Yeah,
I'm usually up at like 9 or 8, depending on whether or not I have to cast like early in the morning. But I was shocked. I was impressed.
yeah. It was like that because my team starts our practice at 1 p.m.
Okay.
and I don't think many NA teams are doing that. There's not a lot of full-time salary teams, so
Yeah.
it's hard for them to play early like that.
Mhm.
And that was just what was best for me.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. So just to kind of give everyone a rundown, because you are kind of a more historied player than I think I've done for a lot of players in these previous episodes. So I planned on splitting this up into maybe not two videos, but two kind of sections where we talk about some of your pre-COVID play, and then maybe some post COVID. Maybe even like separating at the Cloud9 point. But yeah, I wanted to first talk about the way you kicked off your career, because immediately to me, I was noticing that the players you were playing with were all like super impressive. Like you were playing with instantly, like your first season, it was who was it, like Mad Cows and Grim and Open, something like that, where you had some impressive players when you first started playing your first seasons in league. So what was it like kind of kicking off your like league career with some of these players and gaining experience and growing up in the scene with them?
Yeah, I got to play with some pretty talented players off the get-go. We were all really young, so we had a lot of time, and we all had that dream
Mhm.
and the vision of going pro. And we all eventually did, most of us at least.
Yeah.
I played with people like Voltage, Snakes, Grim, and I met most of these people on the CEVO forums. I was super new. My first competitive platform was CEVO. I thought that was the best way to start. I didn't want to jump straight into ESEA, and I was very conscious of the stats. Like I didn't want to start ESEA with 8, 9 RWS, which I
Yeah.
did anyways. Even though I played CEVO first, I did anyways.
Yeah.
But I met all these guys on the CEVO forums, and it was just very casual, typical looking for players post. Voltage Snakes were looking for players. They're looking for an IGL. That's where I started, and we just went from there. I think what separated us from the other players, like what got us to that level, is when we first met each other, when we first got in TeamSpeak, we had this conversation like, hey, we're not going to make this team unless you guys are serious, right? Like,
Mhm.
we all want to go pro here. We all have lots of time. We're young. Like, when we get off school, as soon as we get off school, we're going to go and practice until it's time to go to bed. And I think that's what set us all apart from people that typically are at a low level and jump into teams.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's a little bit shocking again, because like you said, these are all players that maybe not necessarily 100% of them still in the scene, but a fair majority of them, if you go through your player history, are still playing Counter Strike in some sort of fashion, still grinding it out. So again, some of them are in pretty high levels. So um, is that sort of dedication, like, first of all, like how did you go about finding that? Because you said Sivo was a forms, but do you think that there was any sort of like luck involved? Because it was impressive to find that right out of the gates that sort of dedicated crew.
Yeah, I think it was. I feel as if there was some luck involved. I didn't know who I was going
Yeah.
into. Like I didn't know them prior to the team. I met them through the team. I first, like I said, when I first talked to them, it was when they were interviewing me in a way to become their IGL, and we were just super serious about it. Like we didn't play around. We yeah, it was totally lucky because I know when a lot of players these days are looking for teams, they they don't know how to go about it. They
Mhm.
don't know what they're looking for. But with that team, with those players, I got very lucky because we all knew what we were looking for, and we all had the same mindset, and that's where the luck came from. Like it
Yeah.
was actually one of my first teams that I like interviewed for. The first teams that I talked to was actually that Voltage and Snakes team.
Yeah.
I remember the name of the team. It was called Kings Unite.
Okay.
Kings Unite, and we were all like, 9, 10 RWS on EC. We weren't that good, but
Right.
we we would watch demos together all the time as a team, and we understood early that our knowledge is what would set us apart, like as a unit.
Yeah.
So it was definitely luck, but we worked hard once the luck got out the way.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. So I kind of want to follow that up with just immediately you get these sort of teammates that are today's standards, like uh either core like ECL players, right, where they're just super hardworking, ECL, caliber players, or they've passed that point where they are in the Team Liquids or the Cloud9s, and OC included in that, right? Um, so kind of growing up alongside those players, you played with just a lot of these guys that are, either above you or below you. What was it like seeing everyone thrive? Because obviously you were a part of that. You were in the same boat. Everyone was rising together, quite nicely. But did you ever notice individual players take off and move past the pack, or was there any of that going on?
So once we met each other through the SIVA forums, we started hanging out with each other a lot, playing pugs,
Yeah,
grinding, maybe playing another game or two. And we were it was you could definitely notice there was like a competition between us, like a
yeah,
friendly rivalry. We all wanted to be really good at the game. We all wanted to be on really good teams, and that's what pushed us forward. We didn't have ego towards each other. We just wanted to be better than each other. And I think players that really surpass that level, I when I got to play that main season with Grim on Broken Alliance, we kind of had the young kids super team. We were all around 16, 17, maybe turning 18, and we were playing main, and Grim was incredible. We had we won that season of main,
yeah, yeah.
and we played that qualifier. I don't remember what tournament it was for, but we played versus CLG. And maybe you've heard the clip of like all me yelling or like all of us yelling, Voltage yelling on Cash. We were a main team, and it was kind of like
Yeah.
a European situation at the time
Right.
where a main team beat a top level NA team, like one of the best
Yeah.
NA teams at the time, and it was unheard of. That's uncommon. It was uncommon back then, super uncommon. I think we were like the only ones to do that, and that would surely not happen these days. Surely not.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Grim was a big part of that. Snakes was a big part of that. Grim's talented, so is Snakes, but I'd say Grim trained harder than Snakes.
Yeah.
Not that if Snakes kept playing, he would be on Grim's level, 100%. But Snakes had more natural talent, natural knowledge. He just really understood the game naturally. It's
Okay.
not that he would watch a lot of demos and gain this knowledge or deathmatch all the time and gain super good mechanics. He was just this way. He was just a kid that was super good at Counter-Strike. Super calm, great attitude, and those two were super impressive. When After that main season we won on Broken Alliance, they cut me from the IGL position. They picked up MC, and that's when they became sore. And they won their first Premier season. Won their first Premier season after they cut me with MC. And then I got to play with people. I kind of viewed that as a blessing now. Back
Yeah.
then, I was super salty, and
Yeah.
I had a bad attitude when I was younger. And but that propelled me forward. I was like, I got to beat these guys. I got to be better than these guys. And then that's
Yeah.
when I got to link up with people like OC and Infinite and all these guys. And OC is another person that has really impressed me. I played with him on several teams throughout the years, a lot, and it just felt like he kept getting better. He kept getting better. For example, one issue he had when he was young was he was quiet. He was a turret operator. Like he would just play one spot. He wouldn't go aggressive, but he would hit all of his shots when he was a turret. Kind of like modern day Wiz,
Yeah. Yeah.
literally modern day Wiz. And as I kept playing with him on every team, we eventually got to ATK in 2019 and Cloud9 in 2020. He just evolved. Like he got out of his shell. He was always talking. He would go aggressive. He would be calling things, and I would play a lot of bomb sites with him because the aggressive rifler goes well with the passive op.
Yeah.
And I just got to see and feel this evolution of OC, and he him and Grim are the most impressive to me because they just kept getting better. It's never like they plateaued. Maybe Grim had a little plateau there, and then he's back in form.
Yeah.
But while I played with those two, I never felt like they stagnated. They were just so good, always getting better. And I think that goes back to my original statement of we would just hang out with each other, play CS and grind, and we always wanted to be better in each other, and that pushed us to be super good.
Yeah, I mean that was kind of answered my second question, right? I kind of asked, who is rising above the pack because it did look like you kind of grew up with the same core of players. You learned the game together. And Grimm's oftentimes, I think nearly every teammate that's played in like, Triumph with him, any of his previous iterations of rosters has always said, this guy his ceiling is super high. If he's feeling confident, no one could stop him. No one in this like no one in NA, no one even in EU maybe could do damage. And we've seen a couple of games like that at a complexity. We're starting to get that form back. I didn't know if I really believed it in Liquid for a while because he had the pretty shitty roles, right?
Also, it's a player like that, just knowing Grim and
Yeah.
the style he plays, the environment is super important.
Mhm.
That's the same with a person like OC. I'd say OC less than Grim, but the environment and the people that surround him and the people that are pushing him to be the player he can be is super important. And I don't really, this is just assuming conjecture, but I don't
Right.
think he really had that in Liquid. He was playing with a bunch of established legends, and now that he's back on complexity, he's playing with friends again. And I'm not saying he's only good with friends, but that environment has,
It offers us more growth, right? Like
yeah,
that,
it
that
offers
that's
him
what
more
he
growth.
needs.
It puts him in a more comfortable position, and he feels like he can play Grim CS.
Mhm.
And I always tell this to my team now is, you get stuck in the cycle of watching Navi, Vitality, Astralis, like all these guys playing perfect Counter-Strike, like the closest to perfect. And
Yeah.
we're not these people. We're not these people. We need to play the best version of ourselves. And I think when he goes back to a team like Complexity, that's where he gets into the best version of himself.
Okay. Yeah, I mean that makes sense. Do you agree though? Do you think his ceiling is pretty high there compared to like a lot of players? Do you think that there's still some untapped potential we're yet to see out of that guy? Because you mentioned he's still continuing to rise in
Oh yeah.
performance.
Oh yeah. I believe that. I believe that because of my time spent with him. He always kept getting better. And it's hard when you play on a team like Liquid and then you step down, like you get cut and you step down. I went through that exact same thing.
Yeah.
And that is such a hard thing to bounce back from. When I was removed from Extra Salt, I absolutely loved playing with those guys. And
Yeah.
when I had to step back down, take a level back down to advanced with ATK, I was stressed.
Mhm.
I was like, am I falling off? Am I going boomer mode? Am I going to be washed up? Like, I
Yeah.
was super scared. But I didn't. It's you have to keep going. You have to grind. You can't be stuck in the past. And that's exactly what he's done. And if he can get over a hump like that, he can do anything. He can do anything
Yeah.
in
No,
this
that's
game.
that's a great point. That was another thing I'll get into a little bit later. Right? Is the resiliency factor because it definitely is required. Um.
Yeah.
s-
I saw I'd say on some of these teams I saw like a different side to these players.
Yeah.
Not because I'm special or anything, but when I play with these people, I was often in a supportive role with them. Not supportive as in I'm gonna be throwing all the grenades and everything, but I would be hard entrying, like running in for these people. I would be dropping them AKs and I'd be taking like a pistol or whatever
Yeah.
because their mechanics are insane. And if I can run in and find someone, they're gonna instant trade. And I got to see a different side to these people. I would die and I would just watch them like whole games. I would have bad games.
Yeah.
Like Floppy, for example. Floppy's another one of those players. Super good player. And when I was playing with Cloud9, dude, I would just drop this guy AK. I'd be like, give me Mac 10, and I would just run it down, and he would do his magic. He would just carry the game. And
Yeah.
when you're playing in that role, you complement them. You make them better in a way. You make them more comfortable. Because if those people with insane mechanics, if they know where the enemy is, like exact position,
They're gonna win
that's when
that
they're
fight.
gonna yeah, that's when they're gonna pop off and really show their impact.
Yeah, yeah. So I kind of want to talk a little bit about you mentioned something earlier about, IGLing there. And I don't know how deep you went into your career with IGLing, but just talking about that in depth, was that partially the reason why you played, such a supportive element for these guys and such a hard entry? Because now we're seeing a lot of, IGLs are the entries, right? Apex with Vitality is one of those very aggressive riflers. He's usually going down. Same with Glaive, trying to just aggress and support the stars behind them. Do you think that was partially the mentality that you were playing with there?
Yes, I'd say I came into my own with the entry role mostly after I was done IGLing. But when I was doing the IGL and lower levels, I did have that mentality of like, okay, I'm gonna go find them, or I'm gonna get info one round and call around at the next. Yeah, I'd say though my prime entrying was when I started to get to play with OC and 2019 ATK with Floppy OC and Sonic and Cloud9. I feel like that's when I was doing most of my like more aggressive entering, but it was definitely a shared mentality with the IGL times.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah. So starting off, what would you say like your breakout event was for you as a career? Because I'm looking through and obviously like you made it into ECL again very quick compared to an average, player's route, right? You usually see a plethora of seasons played in ESEA. You have to go through the ringer oftentimes, but your rise to ECL was pretty rapid, and then when you did make it into ECL, you stuck around. So again, that's atypical to what we kind of see today. Like, what would you say like your big break was for an event wise for you to kind of keep your caliber as like a top tier ECL player?
I think I had that really good season on the sorry, I'm looking for the name here. I played with Paperboy, Ponalone, and them. I think the roster was called Vireo Pro or
Okay.
Born. That was pretty early in my career, but I became the number one rated player, and I had like a 1.39 rating or something on the season.
Yeah.
And I think that's initially what got me in the eyes of a lot of these players like JT and all those guys that eventually picked me up on ATK. After I'd say my breakout roster where I solidified my position in the top was definitely the ATK roster.
Mhm.
Before that, I did play on Singularity and Party Astronauts. Those were my friends. To return to a previous point is we always played with the same core of players because we were all friends
Yeah.
and we were all serious about going pro. So it kind of worked out. It was like it was luck
Mhm.
because not a lot of players have that.
Yeah.
But on the Singularity rosters, I played with OC and Floppy again, and Party Astronauts I played with Ben and Ponalone and them. But once I joined that ATK roster, the South African roster, I got to play. I got to see a different level of Counter Strike.
Yeah.
Not that they were playing much better than the Party Astronauts guys. Honestly, I think our records were worse, but we were playing in a different style, a style that is more comparable to an EU style.
Mhm.
And my breakout event, that's a hard one outside of the ESCA season I mentioned. But if you ask me personally, an event I always remember is when we went over to Europe on Cloud9 and we played DreamHack Leipzig and IEM Katowice.
Mhm.
I didn't play too good at IEM Katowice. The competition was stiff. They were fucking really good. Oh, sorry.
No, you're fine. Don't worry about it.
They were
You
really
cuss.
good. But DreamHack Leipzig, we got to play versus some really good teams, Virtus
Mhm.
Pro and Big and them, and I had a really good performance there. I felt very confident. I was entering at a super high level. I was like dropping 30 kills in games, and for me, that's a tournament I always remember. If I'm having like a little down phase, I always remember that tournament specifically where I was just destroying these guys.
Yeah. It took down VP there. That's quite an accomplishment, considering
Yep.
what those players went on to do. So that's super sick. Yeah. Um, I mean that was also after some of your like North American Pro League stuff, and like you said, breaking out with ATK, and then transferring into to Cloud9, where you were able to solidify yourself as a really good, top tier player. You're on one of the top tier orgs, but again, with Cloud9, there's probably a lot of expectations on your shoulders. I can imagine. Working with those expectations. I mean, how are you able to play underneath those positions? I mean, I can imagine that it was a bit stressful trying
I'd
to
say,
reclaim the name.
yeah, I'd say going into it when you first signed, that was something on your mind. But then we had really good relationships with each other on Cloud9. We stuck together as a team.
Yeah.
And we were always talking to sports psychologists and always talking about that. We didn't let it sit in the back of our mind. We actively, like proactively, tried to talk about that kind of pressure, and I'd say we managed it as well as we could. I think we did a good job
Mhm.
managing that pressure. I think what hurt us the most in terms of pressure was actually COVID, because when we signed with Cloud9, we knew we were really good online, and we were actually qualifying for every LAN we played for. Every qualifier we played for LAN, we were like winning all the qualifiers. We were excited to go to LAN,
Yeah.
and we went to a couple LANs and we didn't do too good. And a big part of our practice was focused on being better at LAN. You know, managing the pressure of that, playing like a consistent style, like compared to online to LAN, and then COVID kind of shut that down. One of our last match on LAN was actually versus Heroic at Flashpoint,
Yeah. Yeah.
and we beat them 2-1 in a 3-map series where the map on the third map Inferno, I think they only got like 6 or 7 rounds. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it was a very dominant performance. And then after that, no LAN matches at all, and it kind of stunted our growth. And that's its own pressure, because then all the teams, Liquid, Genji, there were quite a lot of good teams in NA at that time. We all had to transition online, and then we didn't get to play on LAN. What we were
Yeah.
focusing on getting better at, it kind of stunted our growth there. That was a whole unique kind of pressure.
Yeah. I mean, that kind of does get me to the next point there. Obviously, with the lack of lands and also just kind of the collapse of the North American Pro League, there's slightly less opportunities. You were also in the process towards a tail end losing Cloud9 as an organization. Mustache Masters, that looks to be like your first event outside of that Cloud9 team, and you just what was it like finally exiting that roster and exiting that level of support? Because you go from having those sports psychologists, you go from having a whole lot, and you've already mentioned getting um or at least losing extra salt on or your position on extra salt was, I imagine, pretty tough. So what was it like losing Cloud9 for you?
We didn't have the best relationship with the org. We just
Okay.
didn't agree on how the team should be run and all these things. So I felt as if it was best that we got removed from Cloud9. The way in
Yeah.
which it happened, I don't agree with, and I think it was handled very poorly. But
Yeah.
that was COVID times, and no one knew what was going on. No one knew
Right.
how to do things. And looking back, I don't think it's no harm, no foul. Like
It was for the best.
it is what it is. Yeah, it was for the best. We got very lucky. Tion, he has a lot of connections. He knows a lot of people. He had a friend who wanted to start the Extra Salt
Yeah.
org, and they supported us very well. They supported us very well. They got us nice places in Austin. They they salaried us well. They got us the same sports psychologist we were working with before.
Yeah.
Uh, it was the best case scenario. Like, it could not have been better going from Cloud9 to Extra Salt. And I think it was actually kind of a relief leaving Cloud9, not because of the pressure, but just because of the disagreements we had with the organization. And then moving into Extra Salt, where we're friends with the organization, the coach is really good friends with the owners of
Yeah.
that. It We just had a lot of freedom to run the team how we want. We had a plan. We weren't just going in there playing Counter Strike. We had a super laid out plan. Like, this is what we want to do. This is how we're going to do it. And it was great. We had a lot of freedom to exercise our team the way we wanted to and hit the goals the way we wanted to, and the org trusted that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, then you had some good results with extra salt. You also had some maybe struggling results, but you really weren't in that team for what seems like too long, right? You quickly got out of there, and again, I wanted you to kind of elaborate on what you said prior, because you mentioned it was kind of a tough loss for you, and you started to worry there potentially. Looks like you bounced back pretty quickly on High Coast, but I mean, what was it like losing that sort of core teammates? Because I mean, I know you think quite highly of a lot of these players on this roster, right? And fairly so. OC has proven himself to be super effective. I really liked Fang on this roster as well. So, what was it like losing this team?
It was hard, man. It was hard. Those are my brothers, man. Those
Yeah.
are my brothers. We still have our group chat from our team. We type in it. You know, if they go to a tournament and they're about to play a big match, I'll type to them like, "Hey guys, you got this." Or if they have a tough loss or a really nice win,
Yeah.
type to them. Make sure they know I'm supporting them. I had the X team. I got cut from the team when I was younger. I had a bad attitude. I couldn't handle my emotions. I had stuff going on at home. You know, I didn't grow up in the best way. When
Yeah.
I joined ATK in 2019, I immediately said, "Hey, can I come to the team house? Like, I want to leave my home."
Yeah.
And I had a bad attitude, man. They want to do a 6-man roster, and a lot of my spots were getting subbed out for Marky, and I was like, "Why me, man? Why me? I put in the work. I watch tons of demos. Like, I bring a lot of stuff to practice. Like, why me?" And I took it personally,
Yeah.
and it wasn't supposed to be personal. And when we have Fang as our fifth, we had Fang before we started trialing Marky for the 6-man. He's comfortable in all the roles I'm playing.
Yeah.
That's where he's actually the most comfortable.
Right.
And if I got a bad attitude, I'm upset, I'm angry with how the team's being run, then why not remove me for someone that's just as talented that plays the same roles?
Mhm.
So that was kind of like my wake up call. They cut me, and I went into my apartment. I freaking cried. I was like, I'm an idiot, and I don't think I would be the person and player I am today if that didn't happen. Like, it was kind of like a tough love situation where
Yeah.
this is what's best for our team, and you just can't be a part of it. So I grew up a lot from that, and in the moment I was upset with them and I was upset with myself, but you just grow up a bit, man. I'm 23 now. Back then I was like 20.
Yeah.
I'm happy it happened that way, honestly. I'm very happy it happened that way because they got to where they are now, and I don't think they would have done that with me acting the way I was. And
Yeah.
I got to where I am now because of what they did.
I mean, that's an incredibly mature statement. So I mean, you definitely see the growth there. Yeah, I mean, that's obviously tough, right? But then you again you bounce back, man, and that's the story of kind of a really resilient player as well. And you come back with High Coast, and you've already played with a lot of these players, if I'm not mistaken, in prior seasons, right? You know these guys, you've played with them quite a bit, but also High Coast's existence was short lived. They weren't really in the scene too long. They pretty quickly dipped out as well, and was it when they dipped out when High Coast ended up leaving? Was that when you also left the team? Am I correct in that?
Yeah, I was actually still playing on that team from the Extra Salt Apartments. They let me stay there for a bit longer than I was on the team.
Okay.
When I joined, there was already problems like the roster. It was uncertain who's going to play on the team, and the org, they weren't supporting us well. Like, they couldn't get a salary when we signed a contract that says we're going to get salary,
Yeah.
and they decided to leave because they can't do that,
Yeah.
understandably so. And that's when I decided, like, I was under a lot of stress because I'm still living with the Extra Salt guys. I'm still salty from being cut. I was trying to bounce back quick, grinding hard, and when that happened, I was just kind of like, okay, I need to take a step back. This is the best time. Like, if I'm going to leave the team, this is the best time.
Yeah.
So it was around the same time the High Coast org left that I left the team.
Okay. Yeah. So then you do have an opportunity to get back into another salaried team. I believe in more structured team. I did like the Secret Club roster. I will not lie. I was really excited for that one. I just wanted
Oh,
to
that
say
could have been a good one.
that
I was
that
going to be the IGL of that team. I was going to be on the IGL of that team. What killed that team was we could not get on the same page for a practice schedule.
Oh.
That's literally what killed that team. That team, I believe, would have been so good. We had young shooters that were hard, like that were really motivated.
Was Classy on that roster? Am I mistaken in that, or was it just Jitterwreck, 60, and you and Hate?
That was the roster. Yeah.
Okay.
Jitterwreck, CXEI, Hate, and myself. We had a lot of talent. We had 2 voices in the team, CXEI and I, and I was actually super hyped because I got to be the IGL again. Like, that's where my heart is.
Yeah.
That's where my heart is. Like, I want to be the IGL, and I accept these days that I can play like at a high level doing the role I am now, and I love doing that role. There's no problem with that. But where my heart and my love for the game is being the IGL. Like, I want to do that. So when I got that opportunity, I was super excited.
Yeah.
But then, my teammates, they're all going through stuff in their life. Like, someone has a 2-week vacation, and I'm just like, bro, the season's about to start. And I think we played like one tournament, and we took a loss, and it was done. Like, I was done there.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it was the Mythic Summer Cup. I remember seeing the ESEA page of your all's team, and I was like, damn, that's gonna be a good ass team. And then you, I think I saw you join ATK like pre-announcement, but it was like just through the ESEA page, like advanced transfer list or whatever. So I was like, okay, fair enough. I understand why this team died. Um, but yeah, this is gonna be kind of the introduction to ATK, and this one I really, again, I've been following this team since pretty closely since you all have been remade and reintroduced, and of course I've been really liking the trajectory you guys are under, um, because it has required a lot of resiliency and a lot of fight to you all, and it's been looking good so far as well. But yeah, so picking up this roster immediately, what were you expecting out of this? Because you played a season of advance. I feel like that is just such an easy confidence building season. That's probably a great way to get yourself introduced into ECL. Would you agree in that? Just kind of getting some warm up matches, probably getting some scrims in, building a foundation. Did that take a lot of the pressure off of you all?
I'd say there was a lot of pressure on us. That was one of the most stressful seasons for me
Okay.
because when they brought me to the team, I actually kind of liked their approach. They sat me down and they didn't have respect for my experience.
Yeah.
And the IGL, he sat me down. He's like, "Hey man, like I know you played on these good teams, but like I don't know who you are and I don't know your motivation. Like I don't know how much you're grinding." Like, and he sat me down and he in front of the whole team. It was an interview in front of the whole team, kind of similar to the my first team, the Kings Unite situation with
Yeah.
Voltage Snakes. And they sat me down and they had like a hard conversation with me. And I was like, damn, these guys are serious.
Yeah.
These guys are serious about playing, and it's not just how they approach the game in terms of like what they want to do, strategies, defaults, stuff like that, but it's a lot of Counter Strike is your attitude and your mentality towards where you want to be. And like from the first sentences that came out of Mistim's mouth, I knew like this guy is going to be the real deal.
Yeah.
And that's what really that's why I loved playing on this team. That's why like I stuck to this team and I went down to advance because I could have easily played on another ECL team.
Mhm.
Easily
You had
played in the
yeah right
playoff
before
ECL
that
team.
you could have yeah.
But I talked to these guys, specifically missed him, and I already knew Spray from ATK because he was our
Yeah.
analyst, but now he's the coach. And I just knew like I was willing to take the risk. Like I don't want to go play with Americans who I know all these players, I know their attitudes, their mentality, their aspirations, and it was nowhere near these guys who just came across the world to play Counter-Strike.
Yeah.
And that's why I try to I tend to gravitate towards these South African rosters. It's they come and they're so hungry
Mhm.
and they show that in their attitude and mentality and how they want to play. And that's where I want to be. I don't want to play with people that don't, if we lose, I'm just gonna go to school, or I got a
Yeah.
job already lined up. Like I got to show up 3 hours late because I have a job. Like that's
Right.
that's cool and all, but that's not where my heart is. My heart is getting on as early as we can, playing all day, getting the practice in, and getting better.
Yeah.
And I knew I could have that with these guys because they're so far from home. They have dreams, and they're gonna do whatever it takes to get there.
Yeah, so I mean, part of that interview, do you have any sort of expectation, right? Because you said kind of not necessarily even ending on bad terms with Cloud9. I imagine you ended on pretty good terms, but um, you know, in that you have that South African connection with Mistim, and I imagine JT having some say. Do you think there was any sort of warning, like, hey, this guy, sure, he's grown a lot. He's shown that he's a different player from when he was on 80, or rather yeah, the previous ATK or Cloud9. Do you think JT might have shot some warnings there to Mistim before?
I don't think it was warnings. I kind of know what was said.
Yeah,
JT and them told them that I was a good player and that I was a good teammate, but I had a bad attitude.
yeah,
Like I would get upset. And I know this kind of conversation happened because one of the first things that came out of Mistim's mouth when we had that sit down team
yeah,
interview was he said, "Hey man, like I know you get upset and rage, but I don't care.
yeah,
I don't care." And I didn't that wasn't relief for me when he said that. That was like, "Oh, okay, like he knows."
yeah,
So, it's that sounds kind of straightforward and blunt,
mhm,
but it's actually incredible how much they worked with me on that.
yeah,
Like we'll play whole games and practices now, and I don't feel this way. I don't feel the way I did on my previous teams because
yeah,
I know I need to sit down and talk about the problem before it becomes a bigger issue, like a volcano erupting.
Yeah.
So they definitely knew. There was definitely some warnings, but I'm glad they did it the way they did because it helped me grow.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah. No. I mean, that's a great
Yeah,
point there.
they definitely had no respect for my experience, which I think is a good thing.
Yeah.
They had no respect for my experience. They had no respect for my past. And it sounds kind of rude the way I'm saying it, but
No, it makes
it was
sense.
the best way. It was the best way they could have done it. In hindsight, I'm very happy they did it the way they did because during that conversation, I was like, "Damn,
Yeah.
these guys are crazy, dude. These guys are hardcore." You know,
They set
I
the
haven't played on a team like
expectation
this.
quick. Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't played on a team like this ever.
Yeah.
Like no one ever did that to me. But it was good. It's the best way I could have went.
Yeah. So I mean, again, coming out of the gates, there was a lot of that pressure on you then in that case, and you know, you were in that ECA. I remember the advanced season. You were in Godson's season as well, so that also probably added some slight nerves because it isn't necessarily guaranteed that you make it into ECL. You had to take down Godson in the finals, and you guys lost that. So relegation can be a scary event. Not for you all though. You ended up making it. I want to talk a little bit more about IEM Fall. That was the major qualifier, and this one obviously was super important to try and make it through. Is this your first major qualifier? This one?
It's not my first major qualifier. No.
No. Okay. Yeah, you did the CS Summit and or the Road to Rio and Cloud9 as well. So you had a couple underneath your belt, but
Yeah.
As a roster, you know, you're trying to make it to the major, and this has been, you know, obviously a pretty big major as well. And at the time, I feel like there was some certain pathways to get there. We weren't necessarily sure out of this Team Liquid roster. Extremum, I believe before this event hadn't played any like series in forever. So in my mind, you immediately think, yeah, ATK can qualify. Sure, they're massive underdogs, and then you might have needed some more firepower or something on this roster. But what was your expectation heading into this event?
The expectation was to qualify. We had
Yeah.
the same mindset, like these teams are weak. We're feeling good. We didn't have the same play style as all these NA teams. They'll just rush,
Yeah.
take our fights. Like we played slow. We played as a team, and we actually, I believe that's when we came really close. Like we had those 14-6 leads on complexity in them, or is this a different qualifier? I can check. But let's see.
You did not. You didn't play complexity, I don't think, or you might have played extra salt there.
Oh, maybe they're extra at the time.
Yeah. But this one, you played Bad News Bears, Pain. You did play extra salt. You played liquid and extremum. But you were a pretty new roster at the time as well. So, you know, making it to this point was probably a big deal. Again, you're coming into this with the expectation to qualify. I think all of those teams really buckled down, incredibly so, to get really serious. But you didn't make it. You did lose out on that one.
Oh yeah, I was getting the tournaments mixed up.
Yeah.
Sorry, like they blend together.
Yeah, I'm sure. There's been so many over the last. I mean, finally we have the RMRs back, so I'm sure.
Oh yeah, we didn't play too good in this tournament.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we got thrashed. I was thinking.
I was about to say. I was
thinking a different qualifier. I was like, dude, we were so close. We were so close.
It was probably one of the PGL ones. Yeah. Complexity. The first open qualifier versus Complexity, the 2-0 that you guys nearly came out back out, and back to back 16-14s. That was the close one that you're referring to.
That's the one. I think in both those maps, we had like 14-6, 13-7 leads.
Yeah.
And we were playing so good. The best Counter-Strike we played as a roster, and then we just choked. Kind of like, modern day ATK where, we get to some of those finals and we choke. We had way more inexperienced people.
Yeah.
I believe we were playing with Mango and Blaze still. And oh, dude, that was a heartbreaking one because we were really hitting our potential, like playing out of our mind so good. And these guys just came back on us, and it was my previous team, and I'm just like, no.
This was Bowden in truth as well.
Okay.
One, but still.
Okay.
I want to talk about kind of the transition though of this roster. Again, at one point you all were playing with the massive South African core. You did have Blaze and Mango in the roster, And honestly, I've definitely had some expectations for this team, but I wasn't sure what the peak was, to be honest with you. And again, there were some lesser experienced players in this roster. So what exactly was the encouragement for the change here? I mean, what was the idea behind, especially going international? I mean, these changes were a bit out of the blue, I think, for a lot of people.
So when you're playing with inexperienced players and you play versus higher level of competition, the the talent shows. Like we can run our best setups, we could play good strats, but if you don't have the talent, like it's not, you're just not gonna
Mhm.
win. Like if you can't have the aim or the emotional experience to back up your strategies, then it's not gonna work. So we, oh, as well as some of them wanted to go home.
Yeah.
They were going through
Okay.
their own mental things and they wanted to go home. Mango was like 17 at the time. Super good kid.
Yeah.
I love that guy. But he wanted to go home and he wanted to, go back into his fitness journey. And if you go on his Twitter, like this guy is
He's ripped.
incredibly fit, lost a lot of weight, looks good.
Yeah.
And that's where his heart is. And when he goes to Mexico, that's where our team house is. They couldn't get
Yeah.
visas to the US because it's expensive. Um, when you go to Mexico, he's uncomfortable. He doesn't feel, necessarily the safest. I've been to the house and it's safe, but he's
Right.
far away from home in an area that's not, it's not like Austin, Texas, where it's super rich city, it's
Yeah.
super clean, and everyone's speaking English. Mexico, everyone's speaking Spanish. Not a lot of people understand English. So he just really wanted to go home, so we had to make that change. And then Blaze, he was dealing with his own things, so he had to go home. And it's not necessarily that we wanted to make the change, but I felt personally like I was actually one of the people that said like, hey, like a change needs to happen. These kids are not happy, like they're, because we
Yeah.
would also talk. We'd also talk amongst ourselves and how you feeling, like what's going on, and they were very honest, and I appreciate that. But then as well as the results were not as good as they could be,
Yeah.
so it made sense. Like I pushed it myself. I was like, hey, like this change needs to happen. These kids need to go home,
Mhm.
and that happens. And we try out some Americans, Cyrix,
Yeah.
uh, Minus was super talented,
Mhm.
but
Yeah. He's nuts.
uh, that kind of ties back into what I said earlier in the episode of I don't like to play with Americans that much. Some Americans, like the Party Ash, or sorry, the EG guys and Complex guys. Those people are that's those highly motivated people. But below that, you can see where people's motivations and attitudes towards the game are, and they're not on par with professionals. And when we trialed these two players, we realized like, hey, like these people are not mentally where we need to be. And Spray, he's from Israel, so he gets to play in the European scene a lot, and he's coached a few of the European teams, and he had these connections with these European players,
Yeah.
Bowden, Truth, and they just have a more mature mentality, more professional about getting better at the game, and that's what we really wanted. And Spray made that happen.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. The sort of connection there. So again, out of the gates, you do get Bowden. I was really excited about this move just because I had watched Bowden a lot in Little Mix. When he was playing in that roster. I didn't know as much about Truth, and I wasn't disappointed at all. But obviously, Truth, I think didn't really stick around too long, and I think it was maybe a similar situation to maybe just not enjoying it as much in Mexico, and the sort of situation that was forced. But then you guys get Swisher,
Yep.
and I think this change probably couldn't have been better, especially now that I know the factor of motivation that's required to make it on your all's team. Um, and Swisher has the motivation, right? He's proven that time and
Yes.
time again. There's no question about that. So introducing Swisher, I feel like this is kind of the final piece to make you all like. I'd like a team that should be qualifying for a lot of these events, right? They should be. You should be closing out Challenger League season. Sure, there's some tough competition every once in a while in these seasons, but if you guys are all playing at your peak, you guys should be qualifying for these. And immediately out of the gates, I think we got a little bit of that. We got a little hint of what you all can do. But obviously there were some challenges, and I think immediately the challenges that I noticed were a lot of second place finishes. I'll be honest. You guys would go very deep into tournaments. You'd prove that you all were deadly, that you all could do some damage, and then you'd get to the finals and a little bit of struggles would take place, right? And what would you say was kind of leading to a lot of that?
What was leading to the struggles, or what was leading to overcoming the struggles?
I would say struggles first, and then we can go into.
So I'd say the struggles were just maturing as a team, and I don't mean that in our personalities and our attitude, but I just mean developing the way we want to play, developing the style we want, and then just keep improving upon that. We spent a lot of time doing that. We work really hard on the strategy part of our game. We think a lot about that as a team. Spray and Mistem specifically have really leveled up in that regard.
Yeah.
We played at the minor and we changed a lot in the system and how our team plays. Even played a lot of changed a lot of spots, specifically mine. And I think the only way for us to overcome those final struggles of getting anxious, nervous, because that was the problem. We couldn't handle the pressure. We would just we would completely change. We'd sit down, we'd play. The comms are not the same. We weren't shooting as hard. All these things. And I think the only way for us to get through that was to just choke. Like we had to keep choking and just keep getting there and keep wanting to win. We couldn't be that team that chokes one or two and then it's on our mind constantly and we just go in that slump and fall off. That's not our team at all. Our team is, okay, we choked. This fucking sucks. Let's get better now. We're not going to do this next time. And we just kept choking and choking. We had like several tournaments where we got second qualifiers and we just lost. And it's like the next one we're going to do better. Next one we're going to do better. And we went to that minor and we got 2-1. We played 9Z, lost, played. Who'd we play next, man? After 9Z.
Can't remember. Shoot. Who was it?
Dude, this tournament just happened. It's a minor, and I can't remember. This all blend.
I know. I was working it too. It was Pain.
Oh yeah, they always have our number.
Yeah.
But anyways, we go over there and we get in that situation on LAN, the choke situation on LAN, and we get absolutely destroyed.
Yeah.
Like we're way better than the way we played, especially versus 9Z.
You guys came out of the gates with 2 really good wins, right? I imagine the confidence was at an all-time high after like absolutely smoking MIBR on Dust 2, right?
Yeah. We had high amounts of confidence. We prepared super hard for that 9Z team.
Yeah.
And it's the same situation. We all know we're close to getting to the major. We're all close to having stickers.
Yeah.
Boom. We're a completely different team the next day.
Yeah.
We're not ATK at all. And once we got in that situation on LAN and we lost out, we went 2-3, ending our minor run.
Yeah.
It was the same thing. We didn't give up. It was the same thing. We're like, this sucks. We need to get better. But we got to practice outside of playing those teams. We got to practice for tons of teams, and we got to see where our weaknesses were in our game, as well as our mentality. Mm-hmm. So when we went back to NA, this is where the positional changes came in. The team structure transition came in terms of our preparation and how Spray and Mistem are working together.
Yeah.
And the combination of those two, my spot changing and those structure things, that's where I feel we finally found where puzzle pieces are starting to fit together better. The puzzle's not finished because I believe we can still grow a lot, but we just kept choking. We just kept choking, and you only learn from experience, and we just never gave up. That's the best way to go about it, is just never give up. It's hard for a lot of, I'd say Americans, North American players, they struggle with this a lot. That's why you see a lot of roster changes. Like maybe they have one bad game and then it just lingers, and then there's a roster move. The B-Hop roster, I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened in the roster, but that's a prime example. Those guys start winning. They beat us in a series. When we lost them, we're like, damn, we're at a low now.
Yeah.
But that's another example of us not giving up. We've won the Challenger League season. We didn't give up. We kept improving, and that's what set us apart. We just kept improving upon our failures.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, in my opinion, I was wondering if, and I knew I shouldn't have doubted you all because you all have bounced back time and time again, but I was wondering if that failure at the RMR was going to lead to some roster changes, to some, again, trying to maybe just skip around the problem. Because like you said, sometimes choking is just running into that brick wall over and over and over again until you finally overcome it. I mean, it was the case with Astralis as well. They were always choking out those finals before they became the best team in the world. So
even Team Liquid, like the meme's
Yeah.
famous, Chokewood, like
Yeah.
that's they won a Grand Slam, it's they had to get there somehow.
Right.
They got there
Right.
somehow, and that was experiencing the feeling and how bad it feels to be so close but so far. And that's the only way to overcome. We talk to sports psychologists the whole time.
Yeah.
That helps, but that's not the same as going in and losing.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah. I mean, again, you were able to overcome it. You guys close out. I kind of want to go into a little bit of depth here with the Challenger League season because it was super. It was super. Awesome. It was just entertaining to watch you all try and get over that hump, right? Because out of the gates, you did have a. I'm not going to say easy opening matchup, but you had a team that you should be taking on. Like you said, a roster like B-Hop, a roster like Brazen. Sure, these guys have a little bit of experience, but there's still, a lot of room to grow for these guys as well. So you close that one out, then you go up against Nouns. And Nouns, I watched their game versus Team 1, and honestly, I'm never sure what to expect out of Team 1 right now. They can be either hit or miss, but Nouns absolutely smoked them. Like, now, Team 1 didn't stand a chance. They got destroyed on map 1, and then map 2 it was a little bit closer, but they still closed it out. You guys do get sent to the lower bracket though here, and this is where your run gets a little bit longer. I think Swisher in our post game interview with him after your MIBR match said that Inferno, or was it Mirage or Overpass, that got choked out by him and like a clutch that he might have should have won.
In the Nouns game,
yes,
it was Overpass. Got
Okay.
a bad round.
Yeah. So Overpass, you guys again maybe just choked that one out, and your competition would have been MIBR. And what's interesting about MIBR, they had to forfeit that first map, but still, they were in questionable form. You guys absolutely put down Team 1, which was, again, really sick. This was when you had to play 2 games in the same day. And it was like,
because of the sticker change, huh?
right,
The sticker
right.
edition.
Yeah. So you guys have to play 2 games. Your schedule gets delayed. You close out versus Team 1. I mean, were you expecting anything from them? Because I know Malbs, honestly, he can show up, but I don't know if he's really in the roles on this team sometimes to show up.
Yeah, that Team 1 team, they have a lot of talent. I think TRK is really good. I think Mal's really good.
Mm-hmm.
It's the thing of right now they only play one way. Like once you watch your demos of Team 1 and you realize what they want to do, what they're trying, like their goals are within a round.
Yeah.
It's very easy to play against. But that's why you don't know what you're going to get with Team 1 is because you know how they're going to play, but how are their individuals going to be that day?
Mm-hmm.
And when you only have one style and the other team knows that one style,
Yeah.
the only defining factor you have left is how well are your individuals going to play.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like, okay, we have a fast style, this is not working, we're going to go to a slow style, or we're going to switch between the styles round to round. It's the same thing with Team 1. So if the individuals are not showing up, then often they lose games that they shouldn't, or the games will get close and they'll lose games that they should win, or vice versa. But I'd say we prepared super well. That's where one of the mini games where our new structure after the minor really kicked in terms of our preparation. We were just ready for them, and we all showed up hungry. After we lost that Nouns game in the upper bracket, we all sat down after and we were just like, we had a shit day. Like, we played bad. We did not play good. That was not ATK.
Yeah.
And it still went 3 maps, full games, 30 rounds. And that was one of our worst days, and we still almost beat them.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great way to look at it. And honestly, you guys definitely turned it up in the rematch. But right after that, you guys have MIBR, right? Your Team 1 game, you close that one out with ease. You have MIBR, and it looked even better. I don't know. I think there's some huge issues right now, some glaring issues in MIBR and their T sides right now. I don't know if there's a team in ECL that could do worse on their T side sometimes. They just seem like they can never get the game plan together. But you guys specifically abuse their T sides like no other team does. Like every time I cast you versus MIBR, you guys are somehow just like destroying them on the CT side. You're always aggressing, you're always in their face, and they never really have a great game plan on how to react to that. Do you think like you have a big stylistic advantage over this team?
I wouldn't say advantage. I'd just say it kind of clashes.
Mm-hmm.
And the way they play, they could actually beat us. They could be super ready for the way we play.
Yeah.
But Their problem when they play versus us is we're more prepared. We are way more prepared than they are for us. Than sorry,
No, you're good.
we are way more prepared for them than they
Yeah.
are us. So when we go into our aggressive stance on these games, we know where all of them are playing. We know when they throw certain grenades, this is what they're doing. Like if this guy's spamming a smoke this round, like if the guy is going, like for example, I play one of my new positions is I play B monster on overpass as a
Okay.
CT.
Yeah.
And my whole career I've been the aggressive A rifler. Huge change for me,
Yeah.
but I don't mind. All good.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I go against exit, right? And when
Right.
you're playing as an anchor player, you often have a 1v1. And when I say 1v1, it doesn't mean I'm going to go fight him and try to win my 1v1 and take that side of the map. I just need to be prepared for the things he's going to do. Is he
Yeah.
going to try to walk out monster on me and take a timing? Is he going to try to walk out monster and not necessarily take the site, just get my grenades out so his team can come back later in the round and it's easier for them? And when you watch MIBR, there's just a lot of easy reads. Like you know what they're going on.
Tendencies type of deal.
Yeah. Like maybe I shouldn't say this on the podcast, but I will. But
Yeah.
I know that when exit is going B, he's going to be spamming a lot when he's solo. Every time they smoke the short Molotov, there's going to be a lot of them B because exit doesn't do it when he's solo. And that's a problem they have, and you can take that problem and put it on all the maps.
Yeah.
It's kind of a similar thing with Team One. They have their style, and they don't switch it up. So once you do your research and you understand how they're playing, it's not necessarily that hard to play against. And if you're an aggressive team, especially on the CT side where you're going to take your gaps, if I know this guy's solo B, my second B player, I'm going to be like, dude, short is free right now.
Yeah.
Or if they're smoking the Molotov, I'm like, dude, let's go into our anti-rush setup. They like the strategy when they smoke the Molotov. And you talk about that before the game, so when you get into the match, you don't have to say all these words like, hey, go into this setup. You know, it's a lot of words. You talk about it before the game. That's the preparation.
Mhm.
And your teammates just kind of automatically move. You know what to expect out of each other.
Yeah.
And I often say that I say this in all my teams, but you win the game before you play. You win the game before you get in the server with your practice, like your general play style, you're
Yeah.
practicing, working on your motions, and your preparation. How are our weapons, which our weapons are our strategies, how are they going to match up against their style? And when we prepare well, we move as a unit without communicating as much, and we know what the enemy team's going to do. So it's kind of easier for us on that CT side, and I think that's why we are able to take advantage of MIBR because we are super ready for them.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's impressive because I know that the structure there over at MIBR is pretty strong. Like they have strategic coaches, all of that, and
Yeah, I think the problem is the roles
yeah.
within the team. Their strongest rifler is their IGL, and when you're an IGL, I'm not sure how Hota calls.
Yeah.
Like you have Art, and he's the hard entry, he's like going for kills, going for space, and all that. Hota's not doing that, which I'm not saying is wrong. You don't have to play the way Art plays, but when you're the IGL, you're more inclined to be in a more supportive role, like naturally. And how is this star player, in my eyes, he's the star player of the team. How is he supposed to blossom?
Yeah.
And why is your person with the most responsibility in terms of the team's direction supposed to have his highest amount of impact when he's moving all the pieces around, like looking at his radar, making
Yeah.
sure everyone's
Yeah.
doing what they practice and all these things? And players like that, star players, need people around them that are going to set them up to do the things they do. Like Grim is not going to be Grim without his teammates. Swisher is not going to be Swisher without his teammates. Bowden the same way. Myself, the same way. It's I don't really see that in MIBR.
Yeah.
I see just very standard going through the motions. I don't see an evolved team, and I think one of the problems from an outside perspective, is that they don't have strong enough riflers that are playing around Hota.
Okay. Yeah, I mean that makes sense. I really like his rifling, but sometimes his calling, it definitely does, come into question. It does look like he's at certain times in rounds could be a little bit too focused on the crosshair because he's nailing shots, he's nailing entries, but they just don't have the time to execute and things along those lines. But that brings me to your final matchup, and this is where again, you guys have been in this position so many times. You were in this last season, 41. And you've already mentioned the matchup versus Pain being pretty tricky. They are a very good team in my opinion. So fair enough. You lose to Pain, but this is super winnable for you all, right? Sure, you're down a map. Sure, your finals win rate, they haven't been the best, but now this is a team that you guys are very familiar with. You've taken them on plenty of times, but they do have a map advantage. And how kind of bleak does a map advantage feel? Does it feel at all hard to come back from for you all as a team, or is that not something you all worry about too much?
I'd say it's something you think about,
Yeah.
but I can only speak for my team and myself, and we were so hungry to just improve upon choking in our finals. Like
Yeah.
I've said before, like we got into the final and we also on top of the structure changes with the preparation and the spot changes with me and Swisher, we also have like a mentality shift, and we used to do this thing where like we'd hype up a final.
Yeah.
And we would put a lot of pressure on ourselves. And people are different. For me, I love being under pressure. I love being hyped. Like I love the energy. I love feeling the electricity. But then you have someone
you were
like
always a player that performed under pressure. I felt like, individually speaking, I feel like it was some of your teammates there in finals that struggled a little bit more for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, maybe I would have good stats, but I wasn't playing the best team
Okay.
game.
Yeah, yeah.
Like maybe I'm shooting hard, but I'm not playing a smart game.
Gotcha.
But going back to what I was saying is I like feeling the electricity, but then you have someone like Fady. Fady is super mellow, super chill, super relaxed, and it's just the honesty that pushes us past our choking.
Mm-hmm.
Like I go outside and I talk to Fady, and he's like, "Yeah, man, when I play in a final and we talk about how like we need to be hyped and all this, like it makes me anxious."
Yeah.
And so we go into this final, and we're actually trying something brand new in this final. It's not a conversation we had before, and it's a conversation of we're all going to prepare mentally the way we want to. Like I love being hyped. I'm going to hype myself up. If Fady wants to go chill, kick his feet up, get a suntan before the game, then he can do that.
Yeah. As
Like
long as you win.
that's yeah. And that was something brand new for us, and I think it helped. I think it helped. It just made everyone more comfortable, and it felt more natural.
Yeah.
I also I wanted to say something is about the Pain game in the previous season is that Pain to us, like we can never beat Pain. Pain is they have our number. They're a stronger team than us, and we're kind of the same to Nouns, and that plays a role because when we go and play versus Nouns, we're super comfortable because we know we're better than them. If you look at the maps, we're like 23 maps to 12 or 13 maps.
Yeah.
And they rarely win the series because we're often playing best of threes.
Yeah.
So, going in a map down versus a team like Nouns for a team like ATK, like we know we can win. It's not a big deal. We know we can win. We just got to manage the pressure, and we did.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, obviously, in your mind, I feel like the question is pretty easy to answer. But do you all think that you have overcome a lot of the issues when it comes down to pressure? Do you feel like you have a little grasp on that? I mean, obviously, you just told me about the trick of motivating yourself for a final in your own way. But do you think like this is going to be a turning point for you all as a team?
I think it's a massive turning point, but also my mentality is when you win a tournament like this one, the Challenger League, you're setting yourself up for more pressure. You're playing versus better teams. So I'm not going to say we've overcome our demons yet.
Yeah.
But we have taken a massive leap in the right direction. And winning the series as a whole is evidence of our improvement in that. But I will specifically say when we were playing Mirage and we were down 14-6.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And we didn't lose a single round and we won 16-14.
There's no stopping.
That's the proof that we did not fall out of the game mentally.
Yeah.
Like that's the proof that we were so hungry and we knew where we were at and we couldn't lose this moment. We couldn't let it slip through our fingers. That was where I see the most growth.
Yeah, no, that was that map right there. That was when I think it was in a pug during that map, watching it on my other monitor, and I was like, oh dang, like they lost that, and I was like, oh man, they're going to do it again. I thought for sure. It was in my mind. I might have even tabbed out of it. I was and then I see you all won it. And I was like, all right, this is done. They got over it. I knew right there. I was like, there's no way they can lose this third map, and you all close it. So yeah, thank you so much for coming on. I'm really looking forward to you all in the Pro League Conference, because you all can do some damage. Again, at your all's peak, I think there's not a lot of teams that do a good job of stopping you all. And again, CT side aggression, I love to see that stuff all the time. So I'm really excited to see what you all can do. Is there anything you want to kind of shout out before we head out?
Yeah, Spray XD, missed him. Keep working hard. I see it. You're doing great. Thank you for being my teammates.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I'm again looking forward to seeing you all in conference. Go and follow him on Twitter or at right below as well if you enjoyed it, and like and subscribe to the YouTube video as well, guys. Thank you all so much, and peace out.